So far, we've seen how to read and write text to a file. What we want to look at now is how to read and write numbers to a file. And before I look at this slide, I want to try it out myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out all this code. And let's look at reading and writing numbers. So let me go here to the top and let me try to write numbers to a file. So I'm going to say num file equal to open, and let's call it numbers.txt. And I'm going to write to it. I don't want to append. I'm going to immediately close the file so I don't forget to close it. So I open it and close it. Now in the middle, I'm going to write some numbers. So I'm going to say num file write 10. Num file dot write 20. And let's run this code and see if it works. So I ran it and it doesn't work. Let's look at the error message. So it's complaining on line 3. Let's go to line 3. It's saying num file.write. Write argument must be a string, not an int. So it looks like the write method does not like taking a number. It doesn't like taking an int as input. It wants a string. So when you're writing, you have to write a string. How do I convert a number to a string? Well, we learned before that int converts a string to a number. There is a function called str, and what str does, it does the opposite. It converts the number to a string. So if I now call str on this 10 and the 20, what it's going to do, it's going to take the 20 and convert it. So str 20 converts 20 to 20. That's what it's going to do. It's going to convert it to a string. Now let's see if that's going to work. Okay, looks like it worked. It didn't crash. Let's go and look at numbers. And there is numbers. And oh, we still have the same issue. They're stuck together. We need to add a new line. So let's go and add a new line. So now I need to add a new line to it. So I need to use the concatenation, the plus, to concatenate a new line. Now let's close the file. I think I closed it. Let's try again. And let's open up the file again. And good. Now the numbers are on 2 separate lines. So the trick is to write numbers is that you need to convert them to strings so that you can write them. So that's the trick. Now we want to read the numbers from the file. Okay? And what I want to do when I read the numbers from the file, I want to make sure they are numbers. So I want to print one more than each number. So I'm going to say, let's say, I'm going to say num file equal to open. This time I'm going to open numbers.txt, but I'm going to open it for reading. And I need to remember to close the file. And in the middle, I know that I wrote 2 lines, so I'm going to read 2 lines in. So I'm going to say num file.read line and num file.read line. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to print one more. So whatever I read, I want to add one to. Print that. So I'm going to wrap that with a print. So what I'm doing is I'm reading a line from the file, which should give me the 10, add 1 to it, and then print it. So I should get an 11, right? Well, not exactly. We'll see what happens. So this line should print 10 plus 1, which is 11. And this one should print 20 plus 1, which is 21. Let's see if it works. And it doesn't work. And it complains about line 10, which is this line here. It says must be str, not an int. So it's complaining that I'm trying, when you see that it's complaining about str and int when you're adding, it basically means one part is a string, one part is an int. And here, I discover that read line gives me back things as a string. So just like write expects you to give it a string to write, read line is going to also give you something back as a string. So what should I do to convert it to a number? I need to use the int function. So now I'm going to call the int function on what I read. So let's put some spaces to see what's happening here. So what I did was I went to read a line from the file. Okay, I read in a number from the file, a line from the file. It was a string, so I'm trying to convert it to an int. So this should do it, right? So this should convert. So this is doing two things. So number one, this will read 10 from the file. Then it will convert 10 to 10, a string, to an int. Then it will add 1 to 10. Let's see if that works. And something still doesn't work. Here, what it's complaining about is line 14, because we forgot to fix line 14. So actually, let's go and fix line 14. And let's replace that. Let's try that. And we find that it's an 11 and a 21. So now I was able to read a line and convert it to an int. So this is how you would read and write numbers to and from files. So here the slide just repeats what we talked about. When you are opening a file and writing to it, you need to make sure that you convert the number to a string and then add the /n at the end. And then when you're opening, you just need to make sure that you convert it back to an int before you do whatever mathematical operation you need to do with it. Now, what we've been doing is kind of memorizing how many lines that we've put in the file. So when I was writing the code here, I said, oh, well, I wrote 2 lines to the file. So when I read, I'm going to read 2 lines from the file. Now, in reality, when you open a file, this might be a file that someone else created, not you. Or maybe you created it, but you don't know how many lines are in it. So we don't always know how many lines are in a file. So what should we do if we don't know how many lines are in a file? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a file. So let's create a big file. Create a big file. So I'm going to say, let's say I'm going to have numbers in it again. So I'm going to say num file equal to open my nums.txt. And I'm going to open it for writing. And of course, I need to remember immediately to close. So those 2 lines should be the first lines you always write. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for, let's say, I in range 50. What I want to do is I want to go to num file and I want to write I plus 1 so that it starts writing from 1. Now I know I can't write a number, so I have to convert that to a string first. So I'm going to take I plus 1, so it's going to print, it's not going to print 0, it's going to start from 1. And now I'm going to convert that 1 to a string and write it. So this will write 50. So this will write 1 to 50 to the file. Okay, let's run it and make sure that the file contains those. So let's go and search, and where is my nums? There it is. And I open it and it has all the numbers, and I forgot the /n. So let's add that in. Plus /n. Okay, so you wrote the number. So this is the number plus the /n, and both of them are inside the right. So let's try one more time, and let's go. And there it is. So I have the numbers from 1 to 50. Now what I want to do is I want to read the numbers. But I want to say I don't know how many numbers are in the file. So how can I check how many lines are in the file? So the nice thing about read line, when I'm reading a line at a time, is that read line will always return the contents of the line that it reads. And if the file finished and there's nothing else for me to read, what it will do is that it will return an empty string. Okay, so if it returns an empty string, I know that I've reached the end of my file. So I can write a loop that reads a line and then checks, is this line empty? And as long as it's not empty, I know I have data to read. So I initialize my line that I'm reading, whatever content I'm reading. I read the first line and then I check, is it empty? If it's not, I do whatever I need to do with that line, and then I read in the next line. So now my variable, my control variable line, I get the first line from the file, I check it's not empty, and after I finish my work, I update it by getting the next line. Does this remind you of anything? It looks like when we're using a while loop to interact with the user, when we don't know when the user is going to finish. So what we do is get input from the user. We check if the input is not like -1 or whatever value we decided we're going to stop when we see. We do our work, and at the end, we go and ask the user again. So instead of asking the user again and reading from input, we are actually reading from the file using read line. So let's check this out. Let's try it out and see if we're going to be able to get those 50 numbers that we read. So I'm going to again open num file. So my nums.txt. I am reading, so I'm going to open it with the R mode. And I need to always remember to close. And now I want to read. So the first thing is my start. Where am I going to get the first line from? I'm getting it from the file. So I'm going to say line equal numFile dot read line. I'm going to read a line. Now I need to do my test. While line does not equal empty space, so this is my test, I will stop when line is empty. What do I want to do? Here I just want to print it. So I'll just print line. And then I'm done. I need to do my update. So I'm going to say line equal to numFile dot read line, the next line. So this is my update. Get the next line. Let's test it and see if it works. And it works. But what is it doing? What did I forget to do when I got the line from the file? Excellent. I forgot to rstrip it. So here I want to do an rstrip to remove the /n. The new line that was typed at the end. So remember, every number that we printed in the file, we wrote to the file, we put a /n at the end. So we need to make sure we remove it. So whatever we do in write, kind of we're undoing in the read. Let's try one more time. And now I got the numbers. So this is a nice way to be able to read the contents of the file using the while loop if I don't know how many lines it has. So I rely on the fact that read line gives me empty when it's done. Now, there's an easier way than that, and I can use the for loop. The for loop is nicer and easier because I do not have to worry about doing my initialization, my test, and my update. So those 3 lines are going to be converted into one line. And I'll show you how to do it. So I'm going to comment out these lines. Okay, so this code was using a while loop. Now we're going to do it using a for loop. Let's do it using a for loop. And what you do is you say for every line in num file. So what this is going to do is kind of treat the num file as if it's a list of lines. And it's going to give you one line at a time. So you don't have to do the read line yourself. You don't have to worry about when is it going to finish and do a test like we did with the while. This will just give you one line at a time. And when the file is empty, like no more lines to read, the loop is going to stop. So here, all I have to do is just copy that print line that I had. So I'm just saying for every line in the file, print it out. Let's try it. And it worked. And this is a lot simpler. So if you have a file and you don't know how many lines are in it, you can use a while loop, or you can use a for loop, which is a lot simpler. So for the classwork, for this classwork, you're not going to be using HackerRank because it requires files. So you're going to be doing it on your computer. And what you're going to do is you're going to write a program that asks the user for the name of a file that reads it in. So here, what we were doing, we were hard coding the file name. But instead, what you're going to do is you're going to ask the user. So you're going to say, let's say name equal to input, the file name, and the user is going to enter the file name with the path, okay? And then you're going to say, let's say my file equal to open, name, and whatever mode is in there, okay? So I'm just going to leave that blank, and I'm just going to comment those out because we're not going to finish this code. But basically, you're going to ask the user for the name of the file and use that in your open function. Now, this file you're going to ask the user for, you're going to read it in. So before you start working on the classwork, you need to go create the file yourself. Now, the file name, read in the file name. This file is not created, sorry, the program will create it. So after you ask the user for the file name, you're going to ask the user to enter a series of numbers. And when they're done, they're going to enter a period. So you're going to have a while loop that's going to run, reading whatever the user is entering until they hit a period. When they enter a period, your program is going to stop. So you're going to have a while, whatever variable does not equal a period. And what you want to do with all these numbers that the user is entering them is to write them to the file. So at the end, if the user said, I want file cat, cat will have all the numbers that the user entered. Okay, so that's the first step, creating the file and writing the numbers to it, and then you're going to close the file. Now you're going to open it again for reading, just like we did here, where we were writing to a file and then closing it and opening it on for reading. So you're going to open the file again for reading, and you're going to read the numbers from the file, and I want you to do it 2 times. You're going to do it once with a while loop and once with a for loop. Now the while loop, when you do the reading, the goal is to print the average of all the numbers in the file. So you're going to add up all the numbers in the file, divide by the count, how many numbers there were. So you will have to keep track of how many numbers were in the file, how many lines you read. So you're going to do that with a while loop. And then when you get it to run and work fine, you're going to comment out the while loop and do the reading with a for loop, just like what we did here. We got it to work with the while loop, and then we commented that code out, and then we got it working with the for loop, okay? And if the user enters like immediately a period at the beginning without entering any numbers, make sure that you take that into consideration and your program doesn't crash. Now, what are you going to submit? Number 1, you're going to submit your Python files that you have. You don't have to submit one for the for loop and one for the while loop. You can submit the same one with your while loop, for example, commented out, and your for loop there, or vice versa. So you're going to submit 1 file or 2 files, whichever one is easier for you. And then I want a screenshot of your output from the program. I want to see how your program is printing, how it's asking the user for numbers and how it's printing the average. Now you're going to submit 2 screenshots. 1 screenshot for the for loop and 1 screenshot for the while loop. And maybe add a comment that says, this is running with the while loop, this is running with the for loop.